Hello again and welcome back to Cloud Force Vibes. Today I thought we'd have a look around the whole grow room. I just wanted to show you where I grow my orchids, how I grow my orchids, and some of the stuff that I use that really helps out growing inside the home. So we are outside the grow room right now. There's the door frame. And we're going to walk in and get away from the laundry sound because I do live in an apartment and I am doing laundry. So if you hear anything in the background, that is definitely what that is. But I really want to focus on some of the tech and some of the stuff that I've bought to help aid this journey in growing orchids. So let's go in here and take a look at some stuff. First and foremost, this right here is my vinyl grow tent. I bought this thing on Amazon. It's approximately like 6 foot by 6 foot by 6.5 foot tall at its peak. It is like house shaped, so it does have an actual peak. It's not a total square. This is the indoor or outdoor version. I bought this one because the actual vinyl is a lot more sturdy. It's got that fiber in it and it really holds up to a lot of abuse. And the first one I bought was just the clear one. It did just fine. It was super affordable, but it just wasn't that great. The framework is exactly the same, but the actual exterior of it, I knew it wasn't going to last as well as this one. So that is the actual grow tent itself. Now sitting above it, hopefully not blinding you too bad, are two very high powered LED lights. These are Cree LEDs. That's CREE LED. I'm sorry, having a little bit of technical difficulties there. I think the light's too bright. My camera went kind of nuts. So the light that was on the right is a Canagrow 100 watt Cree LED full spectrum daylight. And the light that was on the left is a Parfact Works 500 watt full spectrum. It also has the reds, the blues, and the infrared daylight as well. So it is a really good light. They do really well under it. I do get sun from the window over here. So during nice days, because today is not a nice day, it's all very gray. No sun. We haven't had sun for a couple days. It's been really cruddy outside. But on a nice sunny day, I do get some nice sun. I have a shade cloth here. This is just the cheap stuff, 30%. Over the window is a curtain. And yeah, well, while we're over here, let's take a look at this. This right here is a dual range thermostat with a photocell. And what that means is that it has a little sensor right here that detects the daylight outside. So I can set a day temperature and I can set a night temperature, and I can plug in my little heater right here, which I do not have in the grow room right now. It's not the right season for it. It's plenty warm enough to go without it. And you can set a heat differential or a cool differential, so you could set up either a heater or, you know, air conditioner or whatever you needed to do, whatever you wanted. And then a 3, 5, or 7 degree variance or differential between your temperatures. So if you set it at 70, I have it to come on at 73 or, 67, depending on which you're going to do. For heat, it would be 67. You can go 5, you can go 7. So that's how you would control your heat or air. This has been a really beneficial device because it helps me get that nighttime low that I seek without having to come in here and fiddle with stuff every single day. So coming back around over on this side, of course we've got the door. Let's go ahead and put that up. Coming around the front, let's get back into focus. We've got my power strip first and foremost, with my timers that control my lights. Now my lights do not come on all day and stay on all day. As I said before, I do get some sun in the morning. So until about 11:30, that's all they get. They get sunlight. It is through a window, and again, it is diffused, but they do rely on sun and the LED lights only come on in the afternoons. For the 100-watt light comes on at about 11:30. There's still a trickle of sun coming in, and then the beast, the big one, the 500-watt, comes on at about 1 p.m. and they both stay on until 8:30 p.m. at the moment. That time changes with the season, and with the light in the morning as well, because I do want them to get 12 hours to 13 hours a day of light, and in the winter season I'll let it go down to about 11 hours of light, and I will tweak that accordingly with the sun and with these lights right here. I think that's very important to the orchid's health and the way they grow and flower and everything else. Stepping down a bit, these you may have seen recently on Roger's channel. You may have seen them other places, but these are Inkbird. This is a temperature and this is a humidity controller. It is also dual output. What that means is it has two functions. You have on the heating controller, sorry, the temperature controller, you have a heating and a cooling setting. So you can hook up a fan, a heater, fans and a heater, air conditioning and a heater, anything that you might want to hook up to this, you can hook up and set your points, highs and lows, differential, all that, and they will just come on automatically. This thing controls everything. Set it and forget it. That is it. It reads the real temperature right now, and then this is my set point for when actually I have this as a cooling setting for the most part. The heater is completely controlled by the thing I showed you earlier. All this here controls is different fans within my grow tent. So I have it set for 76 degrees with a 1 degree variance. So once it hits 77 degrees, my circulating fans will kick on in here and move the air and cool down the air. Coming over here to the blue one, the humidity controller, this is hooked up to a humidifier and a dehumidifier, believe it or not. Something I struggle with growing in a grow tent is high humidity. If you seal this thing up and zip it all the way up, it is nothing to get this thing to 99%, 98%. The walls will be sweating, and that is not a good thing. Your plants won't dry off, lots of rot, and just really bad things happen, molds and mildews, and you just really don't want that. So it took some fiddling, but I do carry a really high humidity. Right now it's 77 and the door is wide open because of the temperature and the weather outside. We've had rain for days. The humidity outside is ungodly high. So honest to God, right now I can leave this grow room completely wide open in here and it stays the temperature in my house. And if the humidity falls down just a bit, which it actually finally is just now, it goes to a certain low, which I believe it's 75 or 73%, my humidifier will kick on and it will spread mist, cool mist, throughout here, which really helps again in the summertime because the heat from the sun and the radiation will also cause a humidity drop. The cool mist really helps cool this thing down and kind of acts like an air conditioner, even though it isn't. Next here, that is my mini dehumidifier. That thing is always hooked up. I do not take it out any time of year. It really helps with the nighttime humidity spikes, and it really helps just catch all the evaporative humidity that comes off of the mounts and the pots. So before I had that, I really struggled to maintain anything lower than like 86% humidity. Now, as you see, we have 76, so we're still, I'm sorry, at 75.9% humidity and falling, which is good. So that way you get to see the humidifier kick on. The circulating fans that I have hooked up to my humidity, or to my temperature controller, are right here. These are Vivo Sun. I got them on Amazon. They're 6-inch, made for greenhouse. See how they have the clamp on them? At least this model does. And this one up here is an older model that also has a clamp that I have kind of rigged up. But they're both Vivo Sun. I went on Amazon, I typed in the search queue fan for greenhouse and they popped up. They are great fans. I've had this one for 2 years, no problems. I had one down there, same one, and I think I bumped it with my leg and it ended up breaking. The head fell off. But that's when I found the new model with the clamp, and that clamp is just awesome. It makes it so much easier to install. I highly recommend them. The one down here I have fixed, and I don't have it on like the gale force setting, at least not yet. It's on the low setting. There's two settings, a high and a low, and this is just fixed, and it pulls cooler air up into the canopy of the greenhouse, and this fan oscillates back and forth and blows everything around and circulates everything around beautifully. It really, really does help with all the heat, especially when the sun's really high in the sky, in the late fall or early spring, before the leaves are here or after the leaves are gone and the sun is still pretty strong. And in the heat of the summer, it really helps. Now, another trick I use to control the humidity and the temperature is I do not zip the door all the way up. I will leave my door, a foot to even all the way up here sometimes, almost halfway unzipped. And that really also helps you cycle some fresh air in, cycle some old humidity and moist, stale air out, and it really helps as well. A trick that I took from Roger's page, Roger's Facebook, is these little computer fans. I have 8 6-inch computer fans strategically placed throughout my grow tent. 4 on this side. Oh my goodness, that light. 4 on this side, and I have another 4. 1, 2, 3. If you look all the way through there, 4 on that side. You can see the plants aren't whipping around, they're gently moving. A lot of them I do not have pointed directly at the plants, they're moving air past the plants. And that's how I like it to be. The only ones that really have the fan pointed directly on them is the Tolumnias and the Cattleyas up there, and they have 2. They have one up there, and they have one up there, and that's because they really do like a breeze. Whether it's a humid breeze or a breeze to cool them off or dry them off, they really do seem to appreciate it. And that just about does it for all the technology that I use. I have a little thermostat hygrometer in here, which is useless. It always reads 99% if the door's closed, when clearly it's not. It's 10% higher right now in there. I think it's getting tricks played on it by some of the mounts evaporating near it. That's probably just a microclimate. But yeah, that's it. That's the technology for this side. So we're going to step over and take a quick look at the tank, and I will show you what I have there. Very similar stuff. So this is the grow tank, the orchidarium, whatever you like to call it, terrarium, and it is a 70-gallon fish tank that I turned up on its end, and I made the top of the fish tank the front of the orchidarium. I used some Lexan polycarbonate or fiber plexiglass, whatever you want to call it, and I made a top panel with some holes in it for ventilation. I took some really cheap Home Depot hardware, and I made some latches, and I put hinges on it, and I took a panel on the bottom and I sealed it in real good to hold water just in case it ever happens. I put a port here using some PVC pipe for the humidifier, which sits below it, and that is how I constructed this. It took me a while to get it right. I had 2 or 3 rounds of going through and changing out pieces and trying to figure out how I want it laid out. But once you get it all put together, I mean, it really is something that'll change the game for you. This way I can grow one climate with much higher humidity for these cloud forest orchids that I enjoy so much, and I really don't have to worry about them one bit. So the tech on this, I have the same backbone. I have an Inkbird humidity controller, and I have an Inkbird temperature controller here, but the functions on this are a little bit different. I do have 2 intake fans. I do not have an intake and an export, and I will explain why here in just a minute. One of these fans is hooked up to the humidity controller, and one of these fans is hooked up to the temperature controller. They are both on the dehumidifier setting and the cooling setting. This whole grow operation that I have in here also utilizes something that a lot of people don't have luxury to use, that aren't growing in a house the air conditioner. So I can always set the air conditioner 1 or 2 degrees lower, and I can bump the whole room down a couple degrees in just a few minutes, which is really, really helpful in the heat of the summer. Having that said, when the temperature does kick on and it gets too high in here, one of these fans will kick on and it will suck conditioned air, whether it's heated or cooled, and much drier air in from the house, giving it fresh air and reducing the humidity level and the temperature down. Both fans essentially have the same function, even though they're controlled by different operations. It might seem redundant, and it certainly most likely is, but it really does help keep a really good sense of balance in this tank. It's almost like no matter what, you are keeping the humidity and the temperature in check at the same time all of the time, and that's why I like the system the way I have it set up. The secondary functions for the heat element of this heat controller, I have a Reptile tank heater. The black pad that you see on the back is an under tank heater for a Reptile enclosure of up to 60 or 75 gallons, I believe. It does an amazing job of keeping this thing at my minimum of 63 or 62 degrees during the winter months. I thought I was going to have to add a second heater to better distribute the heat, but what I've actually ended up doing without even knowing, is creating a microclimate. This section grows warmer, this section grows cooler. So I keep my Platystellas, my Restrepias, a little bit cooler growers down in the bottom, has a little bit less air movement, and it's where the humidity comes from. So it is more cloud forest down there than it is up here. This is more like the lower section of the cloud forest, or the mist forest, or whatever you like to call that. But again, we'll get back into that in just a moment. The humidity controller functions again, the fan and the evergreen Reptimist humidifier that I have down here. This is also a product that's used in the reptile trade to keep the reptile enclosures and vivariums moist, and it works awesome for orchids. It's a cool mist humidifier again, and it really does help. So let's get this thing opened up, take a look inside, and let that start to cycle. I did forget to talk about the light. This is just again a reptile light. I got this at PetSmart for a few dollars, and inside I have a screw-in Cree LED. Again, that's CREE LED. This is a LED replacement bulb made by, again, the Canagrow company. It is great. Full spectrum daylight, none of the blurple or purple lights like everyone hates. It looks just like the sun, and it is great. They really, really do like it. I do have a piece of 30% shade cloth just in case. I know that seems daft or stupid, but it really, really does help again. Inside here, I have 2.5-inch computer fans. I have 3 of them. And let me look up for you. Sorry, I'm not trying to blind you guys. I have 2 up top, and they are cheated towards the front of my enclosure, and I have another one here on the side that is also cheated towards the front of this enclosure. What that does is it creates a cyclone effect. If you can imagine, front to back, the air will dip down in the front with the fans, it will get pushed towards the back, and it will cycle back up the back of the terrarium. So there is always a cycle in this terrarium, which is great. Again, it really, really does help. You'll notice, again, it's so humid in this room that the the humidifier isn't even kicking on. So I can't show you right now, but we will see if we can't help that along here momentarily. Things don't ever work out when you want them to sometimes. So there is also constantly an influx of cooler air moving up and out of the terrarium through the holes for the fans and the holes that I drilled for ventilation. That again keeps air cycling through, cycling in, fresh. There's no real stink to this place. Sometimes the orchidariums, they're so moist, it really smells bad. It really can. And this smells just like the forest. This smells just like your other greenhouses or anything should or would. I guess finally, the backbone of this thing, this right here, is trusty egg crate light diffuser. You can buy this stuff at Home Depot or pretty much any hardware store. In the lighting section, I think it's $12 for a sheet of it, and it's great. It's plastic. I cut it with a pair of side cutters, and I stuck it right in there. It's great. You can take it out, you can sanitize it, and I do have a piece of window screen, just your normal window screen, here to prevent my flowers, the buds that fall, leaves that fall, anything like that, from getting down in the bottom and getting into any residual water that may be down there and creating any rot or mold or issues like that. So that is it. Oh, and the humidifier finally kicked on, so we're going to go ahead and take a second. You see here, guys, the mist comes up from the back, from the bottom. You can kind of see through the port down here. I've got the floor elevated. The mist just kind of creeps around, and you can see it swirling. And it swirls around with the fans. We'll go ahead and shut this door. It swirls around with all the fans, and it gets carried up through all the plants in the back of the terrarium, and it gets cycled back down through all the plants again with the fans, creating really a true, or as close as I can create to it at least, a true cloud forest environment. Now that is the distinguishing factor between the tank here and this here, is this hardly ever gets to see the humidifier kick on unless I have the door open and I'm working on it, or the heat is really bad. That is more or less a fail-safe, because with the evaporative humidity from all your mounts, the moss and everything else that's going on in here, you hardly ever see that piece of kit kick on, but I would never go without it. In here, the humidifier is absolutely the backbone of this setup. Without it, I would never be able to keep an 89 to 91% humidity level, which is what this is set at all times. And that is how I create my environments for my orchids. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something. And please, if you have any questions at all, I love to talk about this stuff. Please feel free to ask, and I will be happy to answer. Until the next time, happy growing. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for subscribing, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys again very soon.